Hey everyone, Noah here. In the quiet that descends on Washington after midnight, a different kind of tremor is moving through the corridors of power. It's not the roar of a protest crowd or the flash of a cable news alert. This tremor is silent, internal, and for the first time in a long political era, it originates not from the opposition, but from within the fortress itself. The Republican Party, long seen as a monolith of support, is stirring with a quiet, profound rebellion against Donald Trump. This is not about policy disagreements or messaging spats. This is about the fundamental nature of power, whether it resides in the office, bounded by law and precedent, or in the person who holds it, guided solely by instinct and will. What unfolds in the coming days is a test of the American system's immune response, and the antibodies, surprisingly, are coming from the host body. Picture the scene. Phones glowing on nightstands across Capitol Hill. Aides, their voices hushed, relaying messages that make seasoned politicians double-check the sender. The source of the fury is the Oval Office, but its target is unprecedented. The President of the United States is not raging at Democrats or the fake news. He is directing his wrath at his own allies, his own party. The insurrection is no longer outside the gates. It has breached the inner walls. And in politics, as in history, the most dangerous revolts are always the internal ones. This rebellion is substantive. It cuts to the core of what Donald Trump believes is his to wield, authority without constraint. The catalyst is not merely a collection of broken promises on ending foreign wars, on taming the cost of living, on delivering long-awaited transparency. It is the dawning realization among Republican lawmakers that the man they enabled now views the constitutional guardrails not as foundations, but as personal insults. And they are beginning, haltingly, to step in front of him. When a leader who thrives on the projection of invincibility feels that control slipping, the response is never to step back. It is to escalate, to dramatize, to wrap oneself in the mantle of crisis. We are witnessing this precise pivot. The presidency is leaning into the language of emergency and existential threat, not because of a foreign invasion, but as a shield against an internal collapse of support. The spectacle is a defense mechanism. At the heart of this unease lies a statement so destabilizing it forced members of the president's party to publicly state the obvious. Donald Trump has openly mused about the possibility of using military force not against a rogue state, but against the territory of an ally. When Senator Chris Murphy articulated the terrifying simplicity of this, that Greenland belongs to Denmark, that Denmark is a NATO ally, and that attacking an ally triggers a treaty that could put America at war with Europe, it was a shocking moment of clarity. We have moved beyond dismissing such notions as mere Trump being Trump. These are now operational curiosities that must be formally, legally, and publicly rebuked by his own side. This reflects a worldview where geopolitics is a real estate deal. Alliances are not bonds of shared values and security, they are leverage. Territories are not sovereign, they are properties to be acquired if enough pressure is applied. This mindset, terrifying in a global context, has forced a constitutional confrontation. The War Powers Act, often a dusty subject for civics exams, has become an emergency brake, and when a coalition of Republicans and Democrats moved to pull it, the reaction was not negotiation. It was a storm of rage, profanity, and personal threat. The now famous phone call to Senator Susan Collins was a landmark. It was the sound of a president confronting a previously unthinkable reality. That loyalty, even within his own party, has limits. For a political strategy built on the imagery of total control, this is an existential crack. Nothing undermines the aura of inevitable strength faster than your own lieutenants saying no, especially when the question involves the solemn power to take the nation to war. Faced with this resistance, the playbook is clear. Reframe, redirect, raise the stakes. Hence, the swift declaration of a national emergency regarding Venezuelan oil assets. This is not merely a policy shift, it is a political weapon. It allows the president to cloak himself in the language of urgent national security, painting any dissenting lawmakers as weak, obstructive, and unpatriotic. The complex realities, the years-long timelines, the immense logistical challenges, the fact that the primary beneficiaries would be large corporate interests, are irrelevant. The point is narrative dominance. Emergencies centralize authority, they change the rules, they exhaust and distract. This pattern of creating cascading crises is designed to outrun a more tedious, more dangerous form of accountability: oversight. Lingering in the background, away from the fiery rhetoric, are persistent questions about process. Why have long-promised disclosures stalled? Why do statutory deadlines for transparency seem to slip without explanation? When a senator like Sheldon Whitehouse shifts the discussion from conjecture to compliance, citing specific numbers, timelines, and failures to meet legal requirements, it transforms the issue. It becomes a test of administrative credibility, of basic governance. A request for an inspector general review is not an accusation of crime. It is an admission that the machinery of government itself is sputtering. And for an administration built on personal dominance, neutral, process-driven scrutiny is a unique threat. Paper trails are impervious to tweets. All these threads, the Republican revolt on war powers, the emergency declaration over Venezuela, the grinding wheels of oversight, are not separate stories. They are facets of a single, accelerating reality. A presidency attempting to evade institutional accountability by flooding the zone with chaos and crisis. And the key change is that Republican lawmakers, who once waved nearly everything through, are now conducting a cold calculus. They are weighing the immediate heat from the president against the permanent damage to the system they will have to inhabit long after he is gone. They are beginning to see that when a president suggests he is guided solely by personal judgment, untethered from law or treaty, the question ceases to be partisan. It becomes constitutional. It becomes structural. Behind closed doors, they are asking themselves, is checking this president an act of betrayal, or is it an act of preservation for the republic itself? This internal reckoning is why the current rebellion feels different. It is quieter, colder, and more consequential than the usual MAGA world infighting. It is driven not by a clash of ideologies, but by a dawning alarm about the durability of the American system of checks and balances. History's judgment, these lawmakers know, will not rest on who tweeted the loudest in defense of the leader, but on who stood up when the rules were bending toward a breaking point. As this pressure builds, the president's tactics grow more pronounced. The language becomes more apocalyptic. Loyalty tests become more severe. The portrayal shifts from leader to sole protector, the only one standing between the nation and collapse. This is the paradox of this moment. A leader obsessed with his historical legacy is actively creating the instability he warns against, while being increasingly constrained by the very processes he scorns. The real story is no longer just about what Donald Trump says or does. It is about what he cannot fully control, the slow, methodical, and accumulating weight of institutional pushback. Oversight doesn't operate on the news cycle. It accumulates facts, documents, and testimony. It is a friction that his style of personalistic dominance cannot easily overcome. The ultimate confrontation taking shape is not about an election or a single scandal. It is a stress test of whether American governance can function when the greatest pressure comes from within the highest office. The resistance is now institutional and procedural, fueled by lawmakers from both parties who understand a fundamental truth: power that is justified only by personal will and defended by intimidation eventually turns against the system that granted it legitimacy. Today's shortcuts become tomorrow's precedents, and those precedents won't belong solely to Donald Trump. They will be inherited by every future president of any party. This realization is turning quiet unease into cautious, concrete action. Votes are cast for restraint. Oversight is pursued as a necessity, not a partisan game. Distance is created as a form of self-preservation. The world is watching this American experiment. The question is not who wins the next news cycle, but whether the rules that bind power are still stronger than the individuals who temporarily wield it. Systems don't fail in an instant. They are eroded, challenge by challenge, norm by norm, until someone finally says, enough. That enough is now being uttered, not by the opposition outside, but by voices from within the governing party. They are discovering that stopping a leader from overreaching is not disloyalty. In a constitutional republic, it is the highest form of responsibility. The choices made in this moment, in committee rooms, in private deliberations, and in quiet votes, will write the next chapter not just for this presidency, but for the very balance of power in the United States. The defense of the system, often inconvenient and always fraught, is the real story unfolding behind the headlines, and its outcome will depend on choices made when raw power finally meets its long-established limits.